Welcome to another episode of the Purpose Podcast, where we help business owners in Raleigh, North Carolina operate their business with intention. I'm your host, Adam Gross.
I'm Gordon Buchanan.
And today we have a special guest.
How special, Adam?
Very. All the way out from California, Chris Ecklund of Empwr Solar.
Woo!
Welcome, Chris.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it.
A Raleigh native now, almost, right?
Right.
I mean, you live here.
Almost a year and a half. No, over a year and a half.
Wow.
So,
Once you hit 2 years, you're basically a resident.
yeah.
Not until then.
Even someone coming from California, that's acceptable?
Yeah, we'll take it. We'll take everybody from California. If you want to move someplace better than California, come here.
There are a lot of people from California coming here.
Yes.
Awesome. So tell us about what you do. Basically, you came from California and you started up your company a year ago.
Yeah. We moved here just at the end of September 2021. And my wife very graciously allowed me to take a sabbatical. I'm sure we'll get into this later, but I owned and ran a business for 15 years. So she said, "You're fried, you're burned out, please take a break." I said, "Thank you very much. I would happily do that and help us get settled." So for the first few months, I was the stay-at-home dad, Mr. Mom. Which
Sounds amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You relate with that?
I'm a stay-at-home husband, so it's a little. I have less responsibilities. It's kind of nice.
You get the dog.
I got the dogs.
It's close.
The yard.
Say, right? Yeah.
Stuff to do.
That's a lot.
People don't think I do anything.
You work from home.
I know.
You work from home.
It's a joke. It's a joke. What was your old business?
Old business was in fitness. So for 25 years, ever since I graduated college, I was in the fitness business.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really, it spanned anything from like the big health club gym, small gym sort of thing, to strength and conditioning performance with athletes, private facility, collegiate, and education. So all three of those were kind of all in there. So I did high school ed for a while, secondary, and then moved into university for a while. So it was all in that. And then the last 15 years was in Santa Barbara, and I owned a gym there.
Very nice.
Yeah.
What type of gym?
It was my own gym. So it wasn't a franchise. I started it from the ground up. It was called Prevail Conditioning Performance Center. Still there. My buddy, my business partner, still running it. Still going.
Nice. Congratulations.
I'm glad to say for him. And yeah, so it started with, I worked at a couple different places in Santa Barbara as an independent contractor. And then it got to the point where I realized those businesses weren't going where I wanted to go. And there really was no other place in Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara is actually a pretty small place for people that have not been.
It's very famous. Like, it has a big name.
It's got a big name,
right.
But it's population-wise, it's like 80, 90,000. It's not like in LA or San Francisco or something. So it's 80, 90,000, and it's a pretty small footprint. They're jammed in there. So it's a small place, all that to say. And so there really wasn't a good training facility for me to land. So I really felt like God was saying, "You're going to open a business." And so I thought, oh my gosh, I really don't want to do that, but here we go. And so my clients came with me, and I opened a little 1,000 square foot brick and mortar in 2009, and that was that. Kept that thing going.
What was that process like for you starting a business? Did you have to go out into like the debt markets? Did you have to like quit a job? I mean, it sounds like you had a lot going on, right?
Yeah.
How does that process work for you?
That, oh gosh.
Especially in California too.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably really expensive. I mean, do you bring in investors? Do you have money saved? Like, how does that process work for you? Because I think that's a big question a lot of business owners that want to get into business have.
Right.
Well, I would say, first of all, I'd say I'm probably not the guy you want to talk to when you're starting a business because I bring the "are you sure you want to do this" perspective.
I like that.
Which
I need that.
maybe a lot of people don't.
You're a risk manager.
Yeah, on the other side, yes. On the front side, I was like, all right, let's just go, because I did all the things wrong. I'm quite certain. But in short, it was I think probably excuse me, early 2009. And I was seeing the writing on the wall. Those businesses, they weren't going the direction I wanted to go. What am I going to do? And I was feeling like this nudge from God, and oddly had been for about 5 or 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And I'm not a business guy. I do not consider myself an entrepreneur.
Right.
I had no education in business. It was all kinesiology stuff.
Right.
So I thought, well, I've got a client who also loved Jesus and was a really smart entrepreneur. So I thought, I'm gonna sit down with this guy and ask him, what does he think? So this is this is 2009. The economy was still tanking, right? And so we sat down and was like, dude, I'm feeling like I should do this. I think this is stupid, right? This is dumb, right?
Should definitely talk me out of this,
yeah,
please.
because the economy's tanking. Why would you start a business? And he thought, he said to me, he's like, oh my gosh, I'm so relieved. I thought you were, because he was also a client of mine. He said, I thought you were sitting me down to fire me as a client. He's this total clown. Always was like causing problems from one of my group training classes. Always. She's like, I thought you were going to fire me. I was like, no, I don't want to fire you. I'm like, what? I want to get your insights
so
to this
funny.
thing.
That is funny.
And he's like, oh,
That's
well, let me just
relatable.
tell you. Bill and I, which was another one of my clients, were just talking last night about how to get you to start a business. And I thought, oh no. Now I know I got to do
That's
this thing.
crazy.
Like that. I was like, okay, God, here we go.
Talk about confirmation, huh?
So yeah, so it really was. It was so for me, it was not a desire to start a business. I always felt like for some reason God was pushing me down that
Right.
road, and so it was an obedience thing. It was just an obedience thing. So I had thankfully I had some smart people around me. I was like, what do I do?
Yeah.
How do I do this? I'm clueless. So they guided me down the road, and my buddy, my client, basically said, and if you can avoid investors,
Mm-hmm.
do it on your own dime. If that means, taking out the loan, your investor is the bank, but they're a silent investor. It's going to be yours. You run with it. You make all the calls.
Set fee.
Head that route. And some other smart things that they told me on the front end were, don't make it about you. Don't call it Chris Ecklund's XYZ. It can't be about you. It's got to be about the business, because what's going to happen when you pull out? What's going to happen
Start
when
with
you're
the
not the
end in
main
mind.
guy anymore?
Yeah.
Are people going to leave? So you need to think about that now. I thought that was very wise,
That's insightful, yeah.
clueless. And
Think
so I
about
did
that,
those
guys.
things.
Think about that up front.
Yeah, that's a Stephen Covey principle. Start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it was very helpful. I would not have had a clue. And so I did those things. And interestingly, right, you look at, hindsight 2020, back in, I don't know, it was early 2000s. My car got stolen. This is going way back. My car got stolen. I got it back. That the gist of that story was I walked away with my car back and $5,000 in my pocket.
Okay.
Right.
Good deal.
It
It's a good
was
deal
a
for you.
good deal.
Right.
It's like that deal every day.
It's scary
Yeah.
at first.
Yeah.
The car got stolen.
Then a couple years later, that $5,000 I was able to use as a down payment on a home with a couple friends. We sold that home in 2006 when God told me to go down to Santa Barbara from the San Francisco Bay Area, the East Bay Area. We got out of the housing market
Right before.
right.
It was
Before
07
10.
really was the
Wow.
first of the crash, right?
Oh, well, it was going down.
Yeah.
It was starting to come down. We were thankful to get out. That money, I'm gonna say it was 40 or 50 grand we each walked away with. That remaining money allowed me to survive as I moved back to Santa Barbara and start the business. That was my seed money.
Nice.
That kept me afloat barely, long enough until.
I mean, at least Santa Barbara's a
business
cheap place to live, though, right?
It's very, very cost effective.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would encourage anybody to move there.
If you're looking to save money, on housing, Santa Barbara,
It is
California.
a beautiful place.
Yeah,
so.
if you want to buy a 1,500 square foot home from the 1950s for $1.5 million, go there.
That's right.
Go there.
That's right.
So that's
Wow.
that's like all the God stuff. So that was the seed money. That
Yeah.
was and I had the guys supporting me, and I did everything long enough, that whole thing,
I
until
like that phrase.
in
Wrong
2000, probably 17 or 18, when we finally got some business coaches to help us get on the right track.
Wow, so you
This is
made it
long.
like a decade without doing that.
Dude, we should have gotten them right away when we had that margin, and then we waited, and then we had no margin for 6, 7, 8 years till we could really come back and get the coaches. So we were grinding.
What was that process like choosing a coach for you? Like, how did that work? And what did you look for? And then what did they do with you?
It's a good question.
So I've been in the industry for a while. There's a number of organizations in the fitness, I'll just say fitness space, that do that. And so we interviewed 3 or 4 different businesses to find the one that was a good fit for us. And the one that we went with, it was kind of an all-encompassing. I think they had kind of 5 key components that they worked on. I can't remember exactly what they were, but it was like, the what's after, like what are we building for? It's
right.
It's like the financial accounting, it's the marketing and the sales, it's the business ops, and I think there's one other. It's they kind of hit on all
HR,
those
and
things.
hiring, and that stuff.
So they really help you do all of the things, arguably, that you would need in a business.
That's
So
awesome.
that was the one that we need help in all of those areas.
Right, and another, I think, important part of that businesses go through all the time, I'm actually thinking about this a lot personally, is like, how do you justify the cost? You know what I mean? Like, how did you guys talk through and walk through justifying the cost of paying somebody else?
What's the rate of return on a coach?
Yeah, because you don't know the rate of return, right? They can't promise you, oh, your margins are going to go up by 30% over the next 12 months, and we're going to increase revenue by 30% over the next. They can't promise that.
That was my biggest fear when I was working with mine really closely at the beginning too.
Yeah.
Because I was like, how does this make any sense?
Well, and in our last podcast, Adam told his story, and we talked about like it got to one of the moments was like, he really needed his coach, right?
Yeah.
And
it was like a make or break moment.
Yeah, and then the coach was like, "Pray with me."
Literally, that's what I was
like.
Ironically enough, yeah, that's how how God got my attention was basically through my coach.
Yeah.
I worked with a sales coach basically.
Yeah.
To help me, and I was always asking like, what's the rate of return on this? Like, because everything that I hired the coach for, not right now. My current situation is nowhere close to what the coaching was for at the beginning. However, like who I am as a man is much different than what happened at the beginning of the coaching.
Yeah.
Was your experience like that, or was it more like systematic with your business? Does that make sense?
It was probably more systematic for us. I mean, we were, at that point, we were, depending on the time, 10 to 20 employees deep.
Yeah.
We're like, we need systems, we need business, we need marketing, we need, it was really focused on those things initially. So for us, it was, tell us how you guys teach. Tell us how you're going to help us. What is your ROI? What can we expect? Who are your clients? Show us your numbers. Show us your rate of return, because this has got to make sense. And it was, it was not a small investment. It was like, I don't know, $1,500, $2,000 a month.
Right.
So we're spending $20,000-$25,000 a year on this thing. Like, it's got to pay off. You guys got to show us how we're going to be able to afford you.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and make
what
money,
are you going to do?
Yeah.
And like I said, we've been doing it long enough. And I was at the point, but at that point, it was probably 10 years in, but by the grace of God, we had made it that far.
Wow.
And I literally told my business partner, like, okay, we have the margin to do this. And I'm telling you right now, like, I love you. We had a great relationship. I love you. I have a love for what we're trying to do here. I'm not going to keep doing this if we don't get a coach, if we don't get some advice. I'm not going to keep doing this. I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
I do not see the light at the end of the tunnel. We're grinding and working all these hours a week, and we're still, after 10 years, barely making ends meet. I'm not going to keep doing it.
Yeah. And you got to make that decision.
That's a good place to be, though. A good perspective to have, because if not, you'll just run yourself to the ground.
Which I think is the case for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
They have to get to the point of, like, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. That thing.
Yeah.
I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Like, enough is enough.
Right. And it's just hard because everybody thinks there's a hack, right? Everybody's looking for a hack in life, in business, in whatever.
Anything.
And that you think, oh, if I hire this person, or if I watch this video, or if I take this course, or whatever it is, it's like that hack. And it doesn't always work that way, but it does sound like you guys made the decision to bring in outside counsel, and it helped you.
Yeah.
Well, it's also like leverage, right? So when you go in with someone else, then it's like, okay, no, it's time to move. Like, it's time to actually do what we've wanted to do, even if it's like hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which we wanted external accountability.
Right.
We wanted that third voice saying, you said you were going to do this, why did you not get this done?
Right.
We needed that.
Right.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's so hard to to look at that and be like a lot of times consciously I'll act like I don't want it, but I know I need it. You know what I mean? In certain areas of my life. Like I used to do it with my weight, and then it happened with my old, like the last company, and now I'm using it like with what I'm doing now. So I find like people will act like they don't want it, but really they know that they need it. You know what I mean?
If they really want to change.
Yeah.
Right. And you're a sum of your parts, right? So all that experience, all that has led to kind of where you are now. And I think it's pretty fascinating what you do now. So do you mind telling us a little bit more about your current situation?
That transition right there.
That's great. It's well timed.
Brilliant.
That's why they pay me the big bucks here at Purpose Networking Podcast, Raleigh. Ha! I get paid nothing.
Yet.
Not yet.
Yeah,
exactly.
All right. So what was the question again?
So you're now in the solar bit. So like you did this thing. You built a business. You hired some counsel, and they helped you sort of exit the business. It sounds like that was part of that strategy.
That was definitely a piece of that.
Yeah. And that makes sense because you get your financials in order. You get your EBITDA or whatever people want to say. It's like you get the money right, and then it makes sense to leave a business because it's worth something, right? And because
did it work? I guess that's the question. Is like did it all work? Because
you're
here now.
By work?
Well, you were able to exit successfully. Right?
Yeah.
So that's part of that's working, right? I mean, if you can make money off the sale, it sounds like you sold it to your partner. Yeah. But that's tough too because you're a part of the business, right? Yeah. So you take value away by exiting the business.
Yeah. I guess it's just like what happened next.
Story. Yeah. The short on that was I told my business partner 3 years before I left. I was like, we're leaving. It's maybe 3 to 5 years. Turned out to be 3, but like we're leaving. He almost fell over on the floor because I was the one that started the business. He came in later.
Sure.
He thought I'd be there forever. So, after he kind of picked himself up, we basically were able to say, okay, we got to start working. I've got to be able to leave, and the business has got to be able to survive, and you've got to decide what you're going to do. So, thankfully, with the end in mind, it worked great. I slowly pulled myself back and exited out the back door, and for all intents and purposes, people didn't even know. I mean, they knew. We told everybody, right? But I had withdrawn myself far enough that it didn't matter that I was gone, and we worked our butts off for 3 years to develop the systems because it wasn't a franchise. We had to do everything. So all of that, develop the system so I could give it to the next person to say, here's what I do. And then the decide was what my business partner was going to do. He wanted to own 100%, buy me out. And so he did the 15 years of investment work for us to be able to walk away with a lot of cash?
Wow.
No.
Right.
It did not. And that was that was the next piece of that God said, it's time to leave. I'm going to go, and I may get nothing for this. And it was close to that.
Right. You kind of got to start over a little bit.
Yep, because it was, we were a barely profitable business. Even by that point, we were barely profitable. A fitness business in Santa Barbara is like a restaurant in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
There's a million of them.
Yeah, and there's tons of overhead.
Tons of overhead.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean the rent for our 3,800 square foot place was like 10 grand at the time. Now I think it's like 12 or 13.
That's
already.
wild. That's wild.
For a warehouse.
And you said you have competition, so you can't just jack up rates.
All the equipment too.
Yeah.
And anything else you try to do, staff, payroll.
Yep. So anyway, it was almost like a $0 buyout. Walked away with like, okay, that's the deal. Got what is there still? I don't know why, all of the reasons why, but close that chapter. It's time to move on to the next thing. But was it successful? I think so. Right. My business partner and I still have a good relationship. We hardly had anything down on paper, exit plan, all of that. We were able to do it, maintaining a good relationship without all the stuff you're supposed to have.
Without lots of attorneys and contracts and stuff involved. That's really, so you had handshake agreements with a partner, and you both held up your end of the deal, and it just worked out.
That's awesome.
That is cool, man.
So
you probably learned a crap ton too.
Yeah. So we're still friends. We still have a good relationship. The business is still going, and I would say that they're improving. They're still working their butts off, but they're still improving. There's a lot of lives that have been impacted because of it, continue to be impacted by it. They'll never even know that I was a part of that business. That's fun. I love that. And then we came here. So the come here was, we had known for years that we were going to want to leave the business. We had known for years we were going to want to leave Santa Barbara, cost of living. We felt God pulling us here. My sister's family had been here for a while.
Okay.
10 years
So you
or
had
so.
some experience with the triangle. And
We visited quite a bit.
Cool.
And so we felt the pull here. At the time, we had a 1-2-year-old. Now we have a 3.5-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Nice.
And so we weren't going to move across country without support. So it made sense for us to come where we were going to have family support with our little people. So we wanted to come here, and then kind of circling back, my wife said, take a break. And after, I'd been looking kind of off and on for 9 months. I swear I'd put out 50, 60, 70 applications to different places. I was getting nothing in fitness, in human performance. I was getting nothing. And a lot of them were jobs I thought, I should be having some conversations.
You're absolutely qualified for that job.
So I put a fair amount of, this is a stretch for me, applications out there, but a lot that I didn't feel that way. So I'm like, okay, God, I'm gonna take that a bit as a door shut, and I'm happy to shut that door because I was burned out. If I could not be in a gym for a while, I'm cool with that. Right. But then it was like, what in the world do I do now? I'm assuming in order to support my family, it's gonna have to be in business development or sales. I've got my degrees, but
it sounds like people weren't hiring that degrees specifically.
I can't use them right now, so how can I make a living for my family? So I'm looking. I don't have a clue. Where do I go? Sitting at my kitchen table one day, into my head, God popped two of my buddies, both of whom own their solar businesses in California. So I reached out to one of them and I was like, hey bro, do you like what you do? And
that's a good question.
And he says, I love it. And I basically said, like, you're full of it, dude. You're full of crap. Come on. You sell solar. Like, be honest with me. I'm like, I'm sure it's probably okay, but you love it? He says, yeah, I love it. I said, all right, well, can we talk about it? Tell me. So we talked for about an hour, and after we got off the phone, I thought, oh my gosh, I think I'm going to do that.
He just said something that made sense, and you were like, man, this guy, what did he say?
It checked the boxes. We talked for an hour and it checked the box. The boxes were, it's gotta be something that uses abilities that I have. And some of the abilities that I have, obviously I'd been in sales for business for forever. So, okay, it's gonna be somewhere in there. It's gotta be something where I can connect, one-on-one, one-on-two, generally in smaller groups with people. I really enjoy this in connecting with people and feel like it's something that I can really offer to people as a high value. It's got to have that. I've got to be able to do something that I really feel like is going to help people a lot.
Impact.
It's got to have right. You have to believe in the thing. And so it had to have that. Beyond that, I was really open to what field it was in. But it had to have those things, and it had to allow me to focus on God and my family. It had to give me the time and energy for that. What I was doing was extremely difficult. Did not give me the time nor the energy. It was killing me.
Yeah.
So, and beyond that, I wanted to like it. Did I need to love it? Did it need to be something that was the kind of the traditional, if you do what you're passionate about, you'll never work a day in your life. Like, I'm 49. I am not in that place. And quite frankly, that is a thing for some people. I really believe that. That has never been a thing for me.
Sure.
I don't live in that space. My work has never been that. Short stints, yes, but really as a whole, my work has never been that.
Well, it's not your defining factor of your life, right?
It's not.
It's like it doesn't need to be that thing.
I want to like it, right? It's got to offer value to people, but really the people are the thing. The help to the people, right. The people are the thing. So I want to like it. I'd like to like the people that I work with. This is a huge help. But that other stuff is way more important.
Right.
So, and it had some really, really scary parts of it. Knocking doors.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a driver in the solar industry still.
Oh, yeah.
That scared the HE hockey sticks out of me. And that was something that in my 20s, 30s, I never could have done that. And I thought at this point in my life, this is stupid. Like, I'm a 49-year-old guy. Like, I should be able to go knock on a door and not be scared out of my mind. I want to get over that.
Let's go.
And so,
Awesome.
it has some of that scary stuff, and I'm like, I need to get over that.
Yeah.
I want to grow in some of these areas, so I'm going to give that a shot.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So that's kind of it. That's how I...
And I think we've talked a little bit as we've met personally, but I mean, can you tell listeners and viewers a little bit more about how you got onto your specific company, what makes you guys different? I mean, because this is, and we do want to share what you do locally, and if people need that service, they should reach out.
Yeah, we should actually talk about what I do.
Maybe. That's cool. This is
a good time.
We typically do the podcast at the Raleigh Founded, and so we had been, and it's like you're kind of limited on time and space, and people are always like coming into the conference room and just like, oh yeah, we had the conference room at 10, and it's like, oh,
well, you're not sitting in here.
Yeah, it's like 10. Sorry. So we have all the time in the world. I'm saying. I know you got to get going soon, but tell us more about what you do in Empower.
Yeah. So for me, when I walked into the industry, right, especially after running a business for 15 years, you have a desire, certain desires, and a certain sense of how you think business should be done. And fortunately or unfortunately, you have some pretty strong opinions about that. After doing that, and certainly later in life for me, and when I walked into this business, I was really looking for three things. And this is what I told companies that I worked for. I want to work for a company that has a fantastic product. Ideally, one of, if not the best products. I don't want to work for a company that's doing mediocre, we're going to do a deal for you kind of companies. That's fine. That's for some people. That's not for me. That's not what I've done for my whole life. It's always been the best.
Yeah, the standard.
I want to work for those companies, and then toward those ends, you got to have the best customer service. I don't want to be. I'm going to be in this community. I'm going to be a part of groups like this. I want people to know me. I want to be known, and my name means something to me. So, customer service needs to be there. And the analogy that I always use is, if you buy something from me and I see you in the grocery store a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, 10 years from now, I want to be excited to see you, and I want you to be excited to see me. And if I can't be confident about that, something wrong.
Yep.
So customer service had to be there. And then the third piece, which probably is kind of hand in hand with what I've already said, but the company has to have integrity. I gotta have that. There's a lot of other negotiables, other things that I would like to have, like a good culture, good investment in me, great. But I have to have these three things. And what I found in the solar space was not completely unlike the fitness space. It's a very unregulated, kind of Wild West space. In fitness, if you don't know this, you could go home tonight, go online, and it's probably still in the neighborhood of $100. I haven't checked in a few years, but you could go home tonight, pay $100, take a test, call yourself a personal trainer tomorrow.
Right.
Legally.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
It's an unregulated
Zero
space.
experience.
Zero
training.
Zero training.
It's like being an
Online.
ordained minister to do officiant, an
Right.
ordained officiant, right?
You could do that too.
Yeah, you have
right?
to. Yeah, for mine, because when I worked for the gym, I had to get certified.
Yeah.
And I studied I have a degree in nutrition, but it was like to personal train. 3 tests. You get 3 chances to pass one test, and you have to get a 70 to pass.
Yes.
Wow. And so it's like not hard at all.
No.
Like it's crazy. What
Yeah,
you're saying
and
is
you
true.
can you can have the materials and the exam in front of you and knock that sucker
And
out.
the solar world is similar.
Is not dissimilar. So it's right. You've got in fitness. You got some knucklehead who may have their GED and $100 certification, and you have PhDs and everything in between.
Right. Yeah.
In this space, same thing. So it's not dissimilar
Integrity
in that
matters,
regard.
yeah.
So integrity matters, and knowing your stuff matters. The difficulty for me was I had 25 years in the other industry. I knew who the players were. I knew who was doing it well and who wasn't doing it well. I didn't know that in solar. So I had to walk into these companies and get to know them for what I found it was 2 months. In 2 months, I knew. And so I went to this company in 2 months. I'm like, no, you don't have those 3 things. Right?
So you worked for another company for 2 months. 3 months, okay.
No.
You worked for 3 companies?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
This is my 4th company.
In solar specifically.
In solar.
Wow.
Oh, snap.
In a year.
You cycled through quick. I haven't heard anybody go through anything like that.
So you're on the hunt for the truth in these companies.
That's pretty interesting and really kind of amazing.
Like Sherlock Holmes.
So that's pretty interesting. So
Yeah.
you went through 3 different companies before finding the one that you felt like was a good fit.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was really hard.
Good for you to
it was
like
hard
walk
for
away
me.
from the ones that you didn't want to work for.
It was tough because I'm not a jump ship kind of guy. I'm a stick and stay kind of a guy.
Yeah.
And so to get in for 2 months and be like, this is not what I signed up for. And thankfully I had my buddies in my ear going, this is how the industry is, Chris. Leave. They won't care. But I care, and I'm like, I don't.
Is it because it's like 1099? You can just come and go. Yeah, that's how
most are. 1099. So they don't care.
Yeah, it's just they're gonna get what they can out of you, and if you don't bring them
that's how it
anything,
works. Yeah.
They don't owe you anything if you don't do anything.
No.
Yeah,
So
I did pest control, and now they sell solar with a company called Aptive.
Yeah.
And well,
Pest control.
I'm
solar,
sure you've seen.
Same thing.
They're all. I mean, he knows on these streets. Everyone knows each other when you're in the same neighborhoods, and it's very much like that. Like they want you to come out and just squeeze you, see what you can make, and then they don't care if you leave as long as you don't cost them rent or anything.
Right.
Interesting. So now you're with Empwr. You kind of found a company that you feel like you can trust, that fits your mindset and your beliefs and everything.
Yeah.
And that's been pretty great.
That speaks a lot to your character.
Wonderful.
Like to go to 4 different ones and be like, I'm standing firm in this, and then now you're promoting in the community.
Yeah.
So do you feel like this is one where you can stand firm on?
What I've told people is I finally feel like I can exhale. I finally feel like I can relax a little bit. At some of these other companies, right, and they all have their different strengths and weaknesses, but I found that they all had like kind of a decent equipment thing, what I was trying to do, because I'm a stick and stay kind of guy, I was like, well, okay, if the customer service is awful, I'm just going to heavily insert myself in the equation and make sure that my customers are taken care of. I'm not letting our customer service department handle it. I'm in this whole way so they get what they were told they would get, and they feel cared for. But now being where I am at Empwr, I finally feel like I can just exhale a little bit and go, oh my gosh, they're going to take care of my people. And now I can just do what I think is normal,
which is
good
the job.
Customer service.
Right.
And the job is like, once I've educated them and helped them make the right decision for their home and their family, then I can hand it off, right? I can hand the baton to our great customer service people, and then now I can just be the support like I'm supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Check in, how are things going? Can I do anything for you? And kind of like Lee said today, stay in touch with them so that, if they end up knowing somebody else who's like, hey, my buddy said he was interested, great. Would love the introduction, can help
That's so
them
cool.
too. But just normal.
Right.
Now I feel like I can exhale and relax, and our company's going to do it.
I'm so happy to hear that. I mean, that's what you want for
awesome.
people and it's cool that you found that company. And there's a couple things before we wrap up I want to touch base on. So one is, you've mentioned numerous times that locally, at least, Duke Energy is doing something regarding solar where they're changing rates and tell us more about that so listeners and viewers can understand that, if that's important to say.
Yeah, there's a couple important things that are good to know what's going on right now. So, what's a good succinct way to say it? And not all utilities, not all locations, but in North Carolina with Duke has a program called a net metering program. Simplest way to explain it is solar works well either when you have a battery in your home, or if the utility company that you're connected with has a net metering program. This net metering program kind of allows the utility company to function as your battery. They store your extra, right? So you don't have to have a battery, and then you get it back when you need it. And you don't have to pay for it. Okay. So you don't have to pay for a battery, you don't have to pay for, so it's nice, it saves you more.
Right.
What Duke is doing, it was going to be July 1st, there was a deadline, but thankfully they bumped it back to October 1st. The current program that they have, which basically allows anything that you've given to Duke to store for you, you get it back. that's going to come to a close on October 1st. It's going to change. And basically what happens is, it's much more convoluted than this, but the easy explanation is, after that time, if you don't have a battery and you're using Duke as your battery, if you will, if you give Duke we'll call it a buck, you give them $1 of energy to store, when you need it back, they're going to give you 25 cents. So now you got to pay 75 cents on the dollar
for it back.
You got to pay a lot more. Okay? Wow. So it's going to be.
And in the meantime, they can use that power for anything they want.
Right.
Right.
And they can right now too. It's kind of like you lend your money to the bank and they use it and then they give it back to you with some interest. Very similar idea, but they're going to charge a heavy fee.
But they're charging the interest.
They're charging it.
Right.
Right. You're not getting it.
It's like with money.
Well, but it's the opposite. It's like the bank takes your money, they give you money to use your money to loan out to.
Right.
Like Duke is basically taking your money and then saying, all right, if you want your money back, you owe us interest.
Exactly.
That's pretty wild.
That's what's going to happen. So that's a significant change. That either means you're going to pay Duke a lot again, or you're going to get a battery. So
who has the batteries is the next question.
And Duke owns the batteries.
No.
Yeah, who sells the batteries?
So,
I want to get the batteries.
Solar companies do batteries. So if you, there's some workarounds. There's going to be some workarounds after that October 1st date. It's just, it's not as good. It won't be as good as it is right now. It's still a better option, right? In my opinion.
Well, it's like, who owns it is the question, right? So if like people buy the battery, it's like, my energy is not owned by anyone. So if I got the solar, the reason I got the solar is because I'm owning the energy. I'm taking control of it.
Right.
And then if I have a battery, it's all
you
mine to me in,
you
know, versus someone else having control over if the lights in my house turn on or not.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get that.
So that's kind of, that's a big date of when things are changing. There's a lot of groups that are fighting to try to keep the current program, because effectively they give you the long term, Duke is going to try to take away solar from private industry. For sure. They're going to try and monopolize that part of the industry, just like they are in the energy industry as it is. That's the long term game that they're playing, as are all utility companies around the U.S. So it's that battle, right?
Have to, like, with the way.
It's that battle. So private industry's trying to keep it, Duke's trying to take it away, and the other thing, smart on Duke's part, they're not idiots. They're going to raise, which is the other thing I mentioned. They're going to double their rates in the next couple of years.
For regular electricity?
For regular,
coal
for
fire,
commercial, for residential, everybody.
Interesting.
They're going to raise their rates. They're going to double. We won't go down that road. We don't have time.
For non-solar?
Yeah, for all power. It sounds
for
like.
all power.
It makes sense.
Commercial, residential power.
And then push
their rates are going to double. And then they're going to try and take away solar, so they own that too. So if you can get in before October 1st, it's going to be better for you. But if you get in after October 1st, the soonest you can get in, the better for you, because Duke rates are going to start going like this.
Yeah.
They're going to be, and they've already said this, they're going to be one of the most expensive in the nation. They've been one of the cheapest. They're making a huge jump in the next 2 years to be one of the most expensive. So if you can get in before that happens, better for you. And in the end, this is it. Why do you do solar? You rent a home, you own a home. Why do you own a home?
Because you own the equity.
Yeah.
And the value rises.
It's your space. Yeah. It's yours.
The basics,
awesome.
You own it, you have control of it, right? You own the equity, right? You get the return on the investment. That's all solar is.
Mm-hmm.
You rent electricity from Duke, there's no return on investment. They can change rates whenever they want to, and they're going to. Or you get solar, you own it, you get equity. That's it.
How does it work? Do you pay up front and then are there monthly expenses with it?
I like the house analogy a lot, the home analogy, because it compares to solar very well. Most people would agree that owning a home is a good asset. The biggest barrier to entry is that nut of the down payment. How do I do that down payment thing? With solar, it's very similar, except there's no down payment. And your options are the same. You could pay cash for a house, or you can finance it through a mortgage. Solar's same. Except since it's a much smaller expense, some people do pay cash for it. Or you can completely finance it, or you can use something in the middle. Mm-hmm. So it's the same options, really. But
And then, so, I think we do need to get wrapped up here, and we appreciate your time very much. It's been pretty fascinating.
It's been awesome.
And so thanks for coming over and doing this. How can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about solar? You guys do like consultations, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
To come out to people's house. How do they get started?
Yeah. The easiest way for people to get started is send me an email, you give me a call, you send me a text. I'm really easy about communication. Some people have a certain way they like to communicate, whatever that is, that's fine. I do actually have a website off of our main website that I think I'll have to double check, but I think it's empowersolar.com /Chris E. And I think that's correct. It'll take you to a page where basically, if people just I just want to see if I can kind of qualify and kind of get a consultation, they actually go through my website, input some stuff, and then it sends me an email. I can get back to them. But that's it. And then that's what we do. We just basically set up a 20-30 minute consult and answer the FAQs. How does it work? What do I do? How do I qualify? And then what are the numbers? Does it make sense for me? Does it not make sense for me? And then that way people can make a decision. Like for you, we had the conversation before.
Right.
You don't qualify right now. You can't have sun and shade, and you got huge trees around your house.
Right.
You don't qualify. It doesn't work.
I know.
I like trees.
Straight bummer. So.
I know. Pros and cons, right? But if you have to cut those trees down to do what you guys want to do, great, then you could. But I'd say about 50% of people in North Carolina just don't right off the front because there's so many great trees around here.
Yeah, it's the city of Oaks.
But that's it. Set up a consult. Here's how it works. These are the numbers. Does it make sense? Ask me your questions. That's it.
Cool. Well, we'll make sure we share that information in the descriptions of this stuff. So we really do appreciate you, Chris, coming on. This is Chris Ecklund with Empower Solar on the Purpose Podcast, Raleigh.
Yeah, and if you know a friend who is thinking about solar or is thinking about, oh my God, I'm spending so much money in electric and I don't know what to do, send them this podcast. This is why we do it. Ladies and gentlemen, another episode of the Purpose Podcast where we help business owners in Raleigh, North Carolina build their business with intention and operate their business with intention.
Bye.